expecting that all of my students should be able to do this, and this. Is this expectation developmentally appropriate? So you have to ask yourself, what am I expecting right now? And then locate where that came from. Hey guys, welcome back to Dr. O's Learning Lab, where we connect human development and human dignity. And I am Dr. O, and I'm here to help you create brain-rich, emotionally responsive classrooms where students and teachers thrive. So in the last video, we talked about detoxing our nervous system. We talked about what it means to pause, to breathe, to notice what is happening in our bodies and around us, and begin separating the child's behavior from our own internal alarm bells. Not so easy, but we got it done. So I hope you've been taking time, especially as the school year comes to an end, to simply notice what is going on in your body. Why? Because you cannot abolish what you will not acknowledge, and you cannot acknowledge what you are not aware of. And so we talked about becoming more aware of what is happening in our nervous system. So we're detoxing our language, we're detoxing our nervous systems. We're also going to be talking about detoxing our expectations. Yes, we're taking that conversation a step deeper today, because once we start paying attention to our nervous systems, we then have to ask a crucial question. What is activating it in the first place? What is activating it? Why am I dysregulated? Where did this dysregulation even come from? Listen, sometimes it's noise, sometimes it's behavior, sometimes it's just the crazy pace of the day, but sometimes it's something much quieter. Sometimes it's our expectations, and not just our classroom expectations. It's our expectations, the expectations that we have of ourselves, the expectations that we have about our students, and the expectations that we have of our families. These expectations that we inherited from our schools, from our families, from systems, and from our own experiences. And here's the part that we do not talk enough about. The fact that those expectations may be contributing to our burnout more than we realize. So today, we're going to slow down. We're going to ask some questions, and we are going to talk about it. What are expectations? Are they good? Are they bad? When do they help us create safety and structure? And when do they start creating shame, pressure, frustration, and exhaustion? Let's be clear. High expectations are not the problem. Unexamined expectations are the problem. So let's get into it. So what are expectations? Expectations are beliefs that we carry about what should happen, how people should behave, and what we think we or others should be able to do. So expectations are not good or bad. They're not automatically one or the other. They can become harmful or helpful depending on whether they are clear, fair, realistic, and flexible. Let me say that again. Expectations are not automatically good or bad. They can become harmful or helpful depending on whether they're clear, fair, realistic, and flexible. So let's talk about when expectations actually help. Expectations help us when they create safety, when they create structure, when they create consistency, and when they create clarity. Expectations can tell children and adults what is needed without shame or confusion. But expectations become harmful when they are unrealistic, unspoken, rigid, or based on control instead of growth. These unrealistic expectations, harmful expectations, create frustration, they create shame, and most importantly, they create burnout. Oftentimes when teachers hear the word expectations, they immediately go to, oh yeah, I expect my students to raise their hand. I expect my students to turn their work in on time. I expect my students to be respectful. But today's conversation is not about those expectations. What I want to talk about today is what we expect children to be able to do, what we expect ourselves to be able to tolerate, what we expect a good teacher to carry, what we expect the school to fix, and what we expect children to know before we even taught them. Listen, I can remember vividly walking into many a classroom at the beginning of the school year, expecting that all of my students in the second grade should be able to do this, and this, and then being humbled real quick to know that they don't know how to transition well. They don't know how to self regulate. They don't know how to properly do this, that, or the other. But here's the thing, why did I expect them to know that? Or why did I expect that they should have already been taught that if I didn't teach it? Or if nobody taught it? Listen, sometimes the burnout that we're experiencing doesn't come from what the children are doing. It comes from the gap between what we expected them to be able to do and what is actually developmentally, emotionally, and structurally possible. And that gap right there creates burnout for so many teachers. Listen, if this already feels familiar to you, these are the types of conversations that we're having inside of our school community. We're continuing these conversations and we're going deeper because detoxing the classroom is not just about strategies, and it's not just about pedagogy and another beautiful lesson plan. It's about having a space where educators can unpack what we are carrying, rethink what we've normalized. We've normalized some expectations that are not appropriate. We've normalized some developmentally inappropriate expectations. And what we talk about inside the school community is how to build healthier ways to teach without burning ourselves out. We got to unpack these beliefs about expectations and detox ourselves from the pressures that shape how we show up for our students and for ourselves. Click the link below so you can join us and go deeper. The thing about harmful expectations is that they are assumptions. And these assumptions shape how we interpret behavior. They shape whether or not we respond out of curiosity or frustration. And they shape whether we think, oh, this child is struggling versus this child is trying to ruin my day. Because harmful expectations are assumptions. You may walk in your classroom and expect the children to sit still, use words instead of actions, handle disappointment, know how to ask for help, respect adults automatically, care about their grades, care about each other, share, take turns, manage big feelings quietly. You may be expecting yourself to stay calm all day, never lose your patience, meet every need, differentiate everything, be loving but firm, prepared but flexible, and emotionally available at all times. Remember, expectations are neither good nor bad. Expectations become harmful when they are not rooted in reality. The reality is that you are human and your students are human. They are not going to be able to do all the things all the time, and neither are you. So expecting them to becomes harmful and a breeding ground for burnout. So let's talk about how we can tell the difference between a harmful expectation and a helpful expectation. So here's an example of a helpful expectation. In this class, we practice using safe hands. Okay? That is a helpful expectation. We want to make sure that children are using their hands in a safe way. That is a helpful expectation. Here is a harmful expectation. You should already know better. And if you don't know better, there's something wrong with you. You should already know to keep your hands to yourself. How come you don't know you're supposed to keep your hands to yourself? What is wrong with you? So here is the framework that I'm going to give you for how you can tell which expectations are helpful and which expectations are harmful. It's a 5-question expectation checklist that you can go through, and you want to use this to help you detox yourself from harmful expectations. Number 1, and my absolute favorite, is this expectation developmentally appropriate? Can this child realistically do this at their age, at this stage, at their current regulation level? Because all of that matters. Current age, current stage, and current regulation level. The child may know the rule and the child may be able to follow the rule when they are calm, but when they lose access to their thinking part of their brain, which isn't fully developed, and they become dysregulated, they may not be able to follow a certain rule because they are dysregulated. So, in a normal situation, in a normal setting where they're not dysregulated, they understand that they are supposed to share and keep their hands to themselves and not hit and not push. But when little Timmy comes over and snatches my toy, and now my amygdala is hijacked because how dare you snatch my toy, I may lose it and then I may push little Timmy because he snatched my toy. It is developmentally appropriate to expect that a child have a hard time keeping their hands to themselves in that particular situation. So coming over, wasting your words and saying you should know better doesn't make any sense. Why do you have the expectation that the child is going to be able to regulate themselves when something like that happened and the toy got snatched for them? If somebody comes up to you in the grocery store and start cussing you out to your face, are you going to respond like, now let's calm down. Now, why did you say the curse word to me? We need to talk about this so we can have a no, you're going to be dysregulated and you're going to need a minute to take a couple deep breaths before you do something to land yourself in jail. And you are what, 30, 40, 50, an adult, and you expect a 3-year-old to not snatch a toy back or push a kid when they come and snatch something from them. And then you get all upset and in your feelings and he should know better. Is your expectation developmentally appropriate? Is it realistic at this age, this stage, and this current level of regulation? Question 1. Question 2. Have I actually taught this expectation explicitly? Like, have I actually taught what I am expecting explicitly? Not mentioned it, not casually said it 1 or 2 times, not did it in the beginning of the school year when we learn all of our rules and then don't revisit it again on a regular basis, and then make the assumption that they should know it. Sometimes children behave inappropriately because they don't know the appropriate expectation. You want things put back a certain way after center time, and the students begin to put them back in the way that they think because it's cleanup. They're singing the cleanup song and they're starting to put stuff in bins, but they're putting it in the wrong bins. And now you freaking out on the kids because you're like, no, these go in these bins, these go in these bins. I told you. How many times did you tell them? Did you actually practically go through a cleanup time? Or did you just tell them this in this bin, this and this and this one? Or did you actually say, okay, now let's all practice it together? Did you take the first couple of months of the school year to actually reinforce how you wanted things to be put away? Did you explicitly teach this expectation? Or was it a casual mention and an assumption that they should just know how to do it because you told them at the beginning of the school year, one time? Therefore, we need constant reminders for things, and we're adults. Mentioning something once and assuming is just breeding grounds for unrealistic, harmful expectations. And harmful expectations are what? The breeding ground for what? Burnout. And what don't we do in Dr. O's learning lab? We don't do burnout because we need to be here, because we need to be here for the next generation. We are shaping the future, and we want the future to be shaped by educators who are fully present, full of compassion, full of empathy, full of energy, and are able to come in and give the best experience to our youngest learners. That's what we do inside the community. That's why you need to be a part of it. That's why you need to join, because we're here to talk about what so many people don't talk about. Our emotional state is the curriculum. And if we are carrying harmful expectations, we are carrying them into our classrooms, and they are negatively impacting us and our students, preventing us from providing the best education possible, preventing them from getting the best education possible. So again, have I explicitly taught it? Which leads me to my third question. Have I modeled it and practiced it? Listen, children often need rehearsal, especially for transitions, for managing conflict, for asking for help, and for calming down. They need you to actually model it, not once, not twice, but over and over and over again. Emotional regulation is taught. Routines like your morning routine, your transition routine, these things are taught, but they're not just taught, they need to be modeled over and over and over again consistently. You don't expect a basketball player to learn how to shoot free throws and 3-point shots. Go Knicks. Congratulations. You don't expect, the coach doesn't expect to teach them one time and then leave them alone. No, the coach is there day in and day out and showing them how to throw, how to change their hand. If you do it this way, you'll get better. Because what do we say? Practice makes perfect. But yet, in the early childhood classroom, we give our expectations one time to a 3-year-old and expect that they're just supposed to acquiesce. And then when they don't, we get what? Emotionally dysregulated, nervous system goes crazy, then our language goes haywire, creating a breeding ground for a toxic environment. And that is why we are what? Detoxing. You got to model it. You don't just teach it, you got to model it. My fourth question, is this expectation about safety and learning, or is this expectation about control? Because, baby, some of our expectations are really just about control. And if you know anything about children birth to 5, they cannot and they will not be controlled. This expectation is not about protecting the room. It's not about protecting the students. It's really about you wanting to be the center of attention, the sage on the stage. You want to be in control. And here's the thing, there's nothing really wrong with control initially. But when you want to control to the point that students are not engaging in developmentally appropriate situations, children are not playing, they're not laughing, they're not having fun, there's something wrong with that. Why do you need it to be quiet every minute of the day? Why do you have a problem with the child fidgeting and rocking back and forth during circle time? Why do they have to sit crisscross applesauce perfectly still while you read a 15-page picture book and they're 3? What is that really about? There's a difference between creating a safe environment, creating an environment where all students are able to learn. But there's another thing when it's about all eyes on me. Like everything is about what you're doing, and they can't scratch an itch for you having a conniption fit. You got to be honest and say why do we have this rule? Is this really about safety, or is this rooted in the industrial model of teaching? Factory line, assembly line, everybody's desk in a row, everybody doing the same thing so we can produce these factory workers who are able to get on assembly lines and toe the line, so to speak. And last but certainly not least, our final question, question 5: what happens inside me when expectations are not being met? And this is where burnout comes into play. What happens when those expectations, those harmful expectations, are not met? What happens in general when expectations are not met? Does it trigger embarrassment? Does it trigger fear? Do you feel like you're being judged? Does it trigger this sense of failure? Does it trigger anger? Does it trigger helplessness? See, the expectation may be about the child on the surface, but the reaction often tells us something about us as adults. Maybe we're expecting children to behave like little adults. Maybe we're expecting children to regulate emotions that we still struggle to regulate. Maybe we expect children to respect us long before they even trust us. Maybe we expect compliance before we even have established connection, clarity, or co-regulation. And when these harmful expectations are not met, they trigger our nervous systems to become dysregulated, proving that the expectation is really not about the child. It's really about me as the adult. And listen, this is not about self-blame. I'm not here to beat you down or anything like that, because here's the thing, not every expectation is personal. It didn't all come from you. Some of these expectations are handed to us by systems that tell us the test scores must rise, the behavior must be improved, the parents must be satisfied, the documentation must be perfect, the lessons got to be engaging, the data must be uploaded. Listen, classrooms got to look calm, and even when the conditions are not met. And so as teachers, we often internalize these expectations. And when these expectations, these harmful expectations, are not met, they trigger shame. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the failure. They trigger anger, like this is crazy. They trigger resentment. Why they always expect that I got to do everything? Listen, we as teachers have often internalized institutional expectations, and then we mistake them for personal failure. And so sometimes the problem is not that your expectations are too low. Sometimes it's the system's expectations that are inhumane. So you have to ask yourself, what am I expecting right now? And then locate where that came from. Did I choose this expectation? Did I inherit this expectation? Did I absorb it from the system? And then run that expectation through the 5-question filter. Is this expectation developmentally appropriate? Have I taught this expectation explicitly? Have I modeled it and practiced it? Is this expectation about safety and learning, or is it about control? And last but certainly not least, what is happening on the inside of me when this expectation is not met? What am I feeling? What do I need to get rid of? So, how do you detox yourself from those harmful expectations? You go through the classroom detox expectation reset, those 5 steps that I talked about in the beginning of this video. You need to name the expectation. What am I expecting right now? Locate where it came from. Did I choose this expectation? Did I inherit it or did I absorb it from the system? And then test it against reality. Is this expectation fair? Is it clear? Did I teach this expectation? Has it been practiced? Is this expectation even possible? And then adjust your expectations without lowering your standards. Remember, detoxing ourselves from expectations doesn't mean that children have no standards. It doesn't mean that children can do whatever they want. It just means that we stop confusing high expectations with unrealistic expectations. High expectations say, I believe the child can grow. I believe the child can develop. Unrealistic expectations say, you should already be here. You should already know this. So we have to adjust our expectations so that they become realistic without lowering our standards. And last, but certainly not least, we need to watch our bodies. What happens to me as an educator when expectations are not met? So, again, in continuing with the theme of noticing when it comes to our nervous system and dysregulation, I want you to begin to notice what is happening when expectations are not being met. Locate yourself. Where are you when in your body? What is happening physically when these expectations are not met? If stress responses are activated, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling hurt, if you're feeling shame, then chances are that those expectations are not helpful, but they're harmful, and you need to detox from them. And again, this is not about perfection. This is not about judgment. This is just about noticing. Are these expectations helping or are they harming? And listen, if this conversation is hitting home, this is exactly what we are continuing to unpack inside our school community with our classroom detox. This is not about managing children. This is about helping us as educators breathe again, help us think clearly again, help us build classrooms that do not require us to disappear in order to be effective. Come join us inside the community so we can keep this conversation going. And I would love to hear what expectations you are ready to detox from. I want you to drop one expectation that you're rethinking in the comments after listening to this conversation. If you found this conversation helpful, be sure to like and subscribe and share this video with an educator friend. Why? Because conversations are catalysts for change. In the next video, we are going to be talking about detoxing relationships. It's going to be a fun one. In this classroom detox conversation, we focus so far on ourselves, detoxing our language, detoxing our stress response, detoxing our expectations. And finally, in our next video, we're going to be talking about detoxing relationships. This is not going to be a be blocked, be blessed conversation. This is going to be a real conversation about boundaries, about professionalism, and about maintaining and growing relationships that are serving you in your educational growth and pruning those relationships that are not. I hope to see you inside the school community. And remember, detoxing the classroom starts with telling the truth about what we are carrying. Because when we examine our expectations with honesty and compassion, we can make room for children to grow and more room for ourselves to breathe. I'll see you in the next conversation.